What's up, everybody? Welcome back to Team Fish Nichols YouTube channel. Today we're doing a national support from Canada. And what's your name?
I'm Chase Moloney.
And what deck did you play?
I played a Bronzong deck with a lot of Pokemon, but the main ones were Aegislash and Heatran.
Okay, all right. So how'd you end up doing a Swiss?
In Swiss, I had two buys from regionals, and then I won three games, so I was 5-0, and then I drew the last two rounds to finish 5-0-2.
Okay. And were any of those matches hard, or were they all pretty easily?
Um, Round three, which was the first games I played, was pretty easy. I faced a Plasma Lugia deck actually, so Aegislash was just really good there. There wasn't much he could do. Um, Round four, I faced TJ Traquiar. He won provincials this year with Kyogre,
Hmm.
and he was playing that. He's playing that again. He actually beat me in the top four of that provincials.
Okay.
Um, that was the matchup is actually pretty hard, and he beat me game two. Game one, I donked his Articuno because he just started Articuno and like nothing else.
Okay.
I think I benched it game like turn three with the Dialga's Chrono Wind, and then game three, I'm going first. He gets like uh, he's starting fine. He's not dead, but I got like the turn two Full Metal Impact for like I think like 170 or 150 on a Kyogre.
Hmm.
So he can't leave that active because it'll be knocked out. But the only way his deck can move things is rush in, and the only option he has with his field is he has to rush in and pass. So I'm able to Full Metal Impact, knock out his Keldeo, draw two prizes. He ends up having to do that again. I go down to four, and then I'm just able to knock out his remaining Kyogre for my last. I think I won that in like 5 or 6 turns or something.
Okay.
It's not normally a good matchup because of the rough seas, but
Yeah. Okay. And so going to top eight, were you excited? Were you nervous?
um, I was pretty excited. The way I looked at the bracket, and my top eight matchup was pretty good. It was a Raichu Crobat deck that played like Suicune, I think like one or two Suicune and a Miltank.
Hmm.
So, but I'm pretty sure he played like three or maybe at most four basic waters. So I knew like Aegislash would be able to just do a lot there, and then I've got like I can sort of just trade with things like Heatran. It's not I I felt pretty confident with the matchup, but then I knew that the top four who I'd play in top four was the winner of a Landorus Crobat deck and a Landorus Garbodor deck. So I was
Yeah.
like, oh, I don't feel so good about this. But then I looked at it and I also predicted that I'd eventually face um, one of the other two Raichu decks in the finals.
Yeah.
Um, if I made it there, so I was like, I've got a kind of shaky top four, but if I can make finals, I have a good chance of winning this.
True.
Um, so top eight kind of played out like I thought. Um, all three games were close. I won game one by like a turn where if I hadn't won that turn, I would have lost. And then I lost game two the same way, where if I hadn't lost that turn, I believe I would have won.
Hmm.
And then game three again. I remember that game where I played a Lysander on a Shaman where he had win next turn, but I have two prizes left. I've got a medal on an Aegislash and a muscle band, and I have
Hmm.
one Bronzong in play. So I just need the third medal to be able to do a 120 and knock it out. And I think I had like three or four medals in my deck in a computer search.
Okay.
But I already played a Lysander, so I Ultra Ball for my Shaman, and then I drop it and draw six, and I had to hit a medal off the six, and I think it might have even been the last card. It was really close.
Okay. So going to top four, did you play against the Landers Garbodor or the other Landers deck?
So I was really hoping the Landorus Crobat would win because I was like, well, I mean the damage isn't cool, but I don't. That's better. At least get my Bronzongs. I get rush in. I'm not just locked out.
True.
And I figured it would because I thought like I think I didn't know exactly what was in the Garbodor deck. I knew it played Raichu, but I thought it was a thicker Raichu and sort of less fighting. But it ended up being more fighting. So, anyways, I was thinking there was a good chance the Crobat would win and hoped it would,
Mm.
but the Garbodor ended up winning. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, oh, I'm probably out of this. But um, we played it out, and game one, he starts with like no supporters, and I knew that the way I'd have to take this game was like I'd want to go for my Toad early and like try to or either Toad or just damage, but I knew I'd have to go quickly and I'd have to manage my energies really well if I was going to win the game.
Mm.
So I think yeah, I remember how it started. He starts Mewtwo attaches a fighting. I open Kecleon.
Okay.
I go DCE Muscle Band turn one and Sycamore. So I don't have the knockout on him,
Yeah.
but I think I hit him for 160. He's able to attach, knock me back out, but then I knock him out with I go Metal Link's double colorless on a Heatran, hit him for 40 to knock him out. I think he gets like a Halucha or something, but I end up way too far ahead. I think he gets a supporter on like the second to last turn, but I've won by then.
Yeah.
And then game two of my top fours, pretty much the same. He had a bit better in opening. Like he had supporters and energy, but he wasn't getting the Garbodor very fast. And I opened pretty quick. I got my Bronzongs in play fairly early and a quick Toad. And just by then I'm like, at one point he like switches. He goes for a Lucario hit on me. I think for like one energy, but I'm able to get like I think I got like Metal DCE Muscle Band on a Mewtwo to knock it out,
Okay.
and just I got my attackers going with energy too quickly. Like he has to win that game by like me getting a mediocre start and then him just locking me out and trading effectively. But if I get enough energy, so I ended up taking that game with a pretty decent lead as well.
Okay. So going to the finals, are you nervous? Are you excited?
I was I was pretty nervous in the finals, even though I guess I shouldn't be because I'm at that point I'm already like, well, in making cut I'm already locked for the debut invite, but I guess the nerves are still there because I knew I don't know if you know this, but like 60 cards, the 60 cards invitational, they announced that like whoever won Canadian Nationals would
Got it.
get an automatic invite to that.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's pretty sweet. I'd love to go for that, right?
True.
Um, and of course, actually, finals was the first match that I ended up on stream. So I was a little bit nervous in going in, even though I knew it was a good matchup.
Hmm.
Uh, yeah, I ended up playing against Matthew Koo, who he's running the Raichu Crobat deck, which it was the deck I'd prefer to face with the top four. But I also know he's one of the best players in Canada. So I knew like if any like he could definitely still make it close if he gets what he needs.
Yeah. True.
Um, Finals went pretty much as I expected. They were kind of slow games. Like we started with like a Toad War. Um, the first one, I think he played like two Toad, and we both happened to get that really early. But I was okay with that because if I can set up like even like a Bronzong and something just the way he has to win is like a quick turn two Raichu. I think if we play the slow Toad game, I'm kind of okay with that.
Yeah. True.
And I ended up setting up, and as soon as I'm set up with Aegislash, I can usually win by just knocking out the few threats, and then he can't respond.
Hmm.
Game two is very slow, but he had to Sycamore two double colorless very early, and I kind of played around that. I felt like the better way to play that match, rather than prize trading, would be to pass for turns, force him like he ended up with a Mr. Mime active, so he wouldn't want to retreat that because I knew he played so few energy.
Yeah.
So I was like, I'd rather just wait and Lysand or something with energy and run him to the point where he just is unable to respond to me, and I can just take a prize every turn.
Hmm.
And it ended up going that way, and I took the finals 2-0.
All right. Well, there you go. Congratulations, sir. It's very nice.
Thank you.
All right. So I guess my first question is, why did you decide to play Bronzong?
Well, I generally liked the way it looked in the format. Like, there were no decks where I felt like or at least no decks that anyone was playing where I felt like you don't get a game. Like it gives you the ability to play a pretty close game with most decks.
Hmm.
You're not um, and I liked that you could. I like just the ability in general because it gets you a pretty powerful like mid to late game going, as well as the fact that I put in a good amount of text, which sort of lets you find something for almost every situation.
Yeah.
And it was a cool deck when I don't exactly know the meta, I kind of had something in there for everything that let me like try to find a way to win.
Hmm. Okay. So you talked about all the different attackers in your deck, but what would you say is your favorite attacker overall?
I would have to say like I'd have to say Aegislash,
Hmm.
just in how much work that card did for me. Like it's so good against like against Raichu, against Night March, against Seismitoad. Like there's against Landorus. Like there's so much special energy right now,
Sure.
and to just be able to not be hit by that, um, it's way too good.
Okay. And if you were going to redo Canada Nationals all over again, would you make any changes to your list, or you think it's pretty solid like it was?
I think I would go with the same list. Yeah,
Hmm.
there's a couple things you could change, but there's nothing where I went, oh, this was useless. I should, or oh, I wish I had this, right? You know.
Yeah, true. All right. So if you were to go to U.S. Nationals this weekend, would you still play Bronzong again, or would you switch decks?
I guess that's kind of the question on everyone's mind, right?
That's
Like,
very true.
I'm not, I'm not entirely sure because I hear about what happens at U.S. Nationals
Hmm.
like every year, but I've never played in it myself, so I've never sort of been like on the ground trying to read the metagame or I've never gotten to see the full field of what 900 are doing.
Yeah.
Um, I would certainly, I, I couldn't rule out playing Metal again because I think it's still good,
Hmm.
and I'm not sure it makes up enough of the metagame for people are going to completely counter it.
Hmm.
Um, I guess I guess that's what I try to figure out. Like I try to pay really close attention to whether people are looking to counter it more or not. I It'd probably be one of like my top two plays, I think.
Okay. So you talked about Raichu in top eight and top four. I mean, top two. You also played it again. If they had happened to play a Silent Lab, do you think the games would have been totally different, or no?
Well, Silent Lab can definitely do something, but I don't think it would completely shift the game
Hmm.
as a one of because if you have Silent Lab, Raichu is maxing at 100 before like muscle bands and Crobats, so it's not doing much more than the Miltank does, honestly.
True.
Um, and with the two Aegislash, they could even do that, but then it would be troublesome. But as long as you could bounce it with the Steel Shelter, I think I don't think it would have no effect, but I don't think it turns it into a bad matchup at all either.
Okay. All right. True. And I guess the other question I have is we've seen every year for the past 2 years. We saw at U.S. Nationals, Pyro was a really big deck. Then at Worlds, it kind of died off in the year before. Gothitelle Selga was also a really big deck, and it kind of died off at
Yeah,
Worlds. Do you think the trend's going to happen again?
it's. I'm interested to see if it does. Yeah, that's been, I think, something everyone's noticed about Worlds these past couple years. Um, I'm not sure there's a deck like those two that exists in that like the appeal of Gothitelle was that you just completely locked out the plasma decks unless there were some really out there ways to tech for it, but
Sure.
in general that you just lost. And then the appeal of Pyro was that you just auto one plasma and then not auto one but had a very good Virizion Genesect matchup.
Hmm.
I'm not I'm not sure we have those sort of like there's definitely matchups in play, but I don't think we have those like auto auto win like you're locked out because of this
Sure.
as much.
Okay.
Um, I think if something like that did happen and a deck like that did sort of come out of nowhere in the metagame that sort of fit that profile, people might not. I could see people actually playing it for Worlds this year if it looked similar because they might go, well, Gothitelle wouldn't have actually been so bad, or they might go like, well, Pyro wouldn't have been so bad. Like in the general field, it's kind of risky because like at Worlds this past year for Pyro, but when you look at Top Cut, you've got like there were like four Virizion Genesects and a Plasma.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't know. I'm not sure that can continue.
Alrighty. Well, do you want to give any shout outs to anybody?
Yeah, I'll shout out my friend Trevor Reed because he sort of convinced me metal was still good a bit during the week leading up to it, and also he lent me a bunch of cards going into it as well. Like the half the attackers were his, and he also lent me a bunch of Rayquazas that I didn't end up playing.
Mm-hmm.
And also shout out to all the Ontario players I hung out with, like Zach Lesage, Jacob Lesage, um, Dakota, Calvin, Winston, Andre, Emma. Like I'm sure I'm gonna forget people when
Just
listening, but yeah,
everybody.
everyone I hung out with this weekend.
Alrighty, man. Well, thank you so much for doing this, and I'll see you at Worlds.
Thank you.
All
Good
right.
luck at U.S. Nationals.
Oh, thank you so much, man.